Welcome to the conversation you never knew you needed. No filters, no masks, just real talk and honest insights.
Okay, buckle up, listeners, because today's deep dive is taking us into, well, a surprising world. We're talking Botox. And no, not just for those forehead lines, though I wouldn't say no to a little help there.
We might need a whole other deep dive for that.
Right. But seriously, we're talking Masseter Botox today.
Yeah, you're hearing about it more and more these days. It's definitely having a moment.
Totally. So, for those who haven't encountered this term in the wild yet, what are we even talking about when we say Masseter Botox?
So Masseter Botox is essentially using Botox, which most people associate with wrinkles, right? To target this specific muscle in your jaw called the masseter muscle.
Okay, so it's still Botox, same stuff, but it's about where it's injected and what it's meant to do.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how it's gone from this niche thing to something that's bridging into broader health concerns.
Yeah, I've heard it can help with teeth grinding, which I guess makes sense if it's relaxing that jaw muscle.
Right. That's bruxism, to use the technical term, and it's a really common problem.
See, you're already speaking my language, which is to say, please break it down for those of us who haven't gotten the memo yet. Bruxism is.
So in the simplest terms, it's when you're clenching or grinding your teeth, often unconsciously, especially when you're asleep.
Wait, really? I do that.
A lot of people do it and don't even realize it until they start getting those headaches, that jaw pain.
Okay, now I'm low-key freaking out wondering if I do that. But okay, back to the Botox part of this equation. How does that even help with teeth grinding? I always thought Botox was all about, like, freezing your face into a smooth, expressionless mask, which don't get me wrong.
We've all been tempted.
Right. But if I'm grinding my teeth, is a frozen face really the solution?
Well, the science behind it is actually pretty interesting. Botox works by temporarily hitting the pause button on those nerve signals that tell your muscles to contract. It's not about freezing them completely, but more like putting those overworked muscles on a bit of a relaxation vacation.
So relaxing the intensity of those muscle contractions, that's pretty wild. But how does that translate specifically to Masseter Botox?
Well, that masseter muscle we talked about, it's the big one in your jaw that you use for chewing. When you inject Botox into it, it chills it out, essentially, reduces the force of your bite, and because of that, it minimizes that teeth grinding action.
So it's not actually shrinking the muscle, it's just like telling it to take a break, which in turn can help with teeth grinding.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I have to admit, though, when I first heard about Masseter Botox, the first thing that popped into my head was jaw slimming. All those articles about getting that sculpted jawline.
Right. It's definitely become a popular treatment for that, especially in some Asian countries I've noticed where having a more V-shaped face is considered super desirable.
So how does that work? Is it actually shrinking the muscle, or is it more about relaxing it and making it appear smaller?
It's a bit of both, actually. If you have what's called hypertrophy of the masseter muscle, meaning it's actually enlarged, often from years of intense chewing, or, yep, you guessed it, chronic teeth grinding, then relaxing the muscle with Botox can lead to some noticeable slimming.
So it's not like injecting someone's jaw with magical shrinking serum. It's more about relaxing an already overdeveloped muscle.
Exactly. Though, wouldn't that be amazing? One injection for a sculpted jawline. Sign me up.
Right. Sign me up, too. But speaking of signing up and maybe forking over some cash, this whole thing does make me wonder, if it's not just cosmetic and can actually help with medical issues like teeth grinding, does that mean insurance might actually cover it in some cases?
That's where things get really interesting and honestly a bit complicated. Insurance coverage for Masseter Botox is one of those gray areas because it can be used for both cosmetic and medical purposes.
So not a simple yes or no answer for our listeners out there.
Got it. Well, since you brought up interesting, I think we should probably unpack that a bit more. So not a simple yes or no answer for our listeners out there.
Got it. Well, since you brought up interesting, I think we should probably unpack that a bit more.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely not as straightforward as some people might assume. And that's where those ethical considerations we touched on earlier come into play.
Right, because there's always that question of, like, what's medically necessary versus what someone simply wants, right?
Exactly. And with something like Masseter Botox, which can have both cosmetic and medical benefits, it's easy to see how those lines can get blurred.
Totally. It makes you wonder how often those decisions about whether to try it or not
Hmm.
are influenced by, well, let's just say societal beauty standards.
Oh, for sure. We live in a world that's obsessed with achieving that perfectly sculpted, Instagram-worthy look, and it's easy to feel the pressure to conform, even if it means pursuing treatments that we might not necessarily need from a medical standpoint.
It's true. Those before and after photos can be very persuasive. But even beyond the whole social media aspect, I imagine it can be hard for someone to even recognize when their own desire for a certain look is being influenced by those external pressures. There's a lot to unpack.
It really is, and that's why I think it's so important to have these open and honest conversations about the pressures we face, the choices we make, and the reasons behind those choices.
Totally. Knowledge is power. Right. Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're intrigued. They've done their research, talked to their doctor, and they've decided that, yeah, Masseter Botox is something they want to explore. What can they expect from the actual procedure itself? Paint us a picture.
Sure. So first and foremost, it's important to remember that Masseter Botox is still a medical procedure. And like any medical procedure, it comes with potential risks and side effects.
Right. Got to keep it real. So what are we talking about here? What are the potential downsides?
Well, the good news is that with Masseter Botox, the side effects are usually pretty minimal and temporary.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah, we're talking about things like bruising, swelling, maybe some tenderness at the injection site, that sort of thing. It usually disappears within a few days.
So nothing too scary.
Exactly. In rarer cases, there's a risk of muscle weakness, asymmetry, or even some difficulty chewing or speaking for a bit. But again, these are typically short-lived.
Okay, so basically, as with any procedure involving needles and sensitive areas, it's crucial to find someone who really knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. Choosing a qualified, experienced injector is non-negotiable. Do your research, ask for recommendations, look at before and after photos if they're available.
Right, because a wonky jawline is definitely not the look we're going for.
Definitely not. And remember, even if you find a great injector, the effects of Masseter Botox aren't permanent.
So you might have to repeat the procedure after a while.
Exactly. Typically, the results last anywhere from 3 to 6 months, but it varies from person to person.
So it's more of an ongoing commitment, then, if you want to maintain those results long term.
It is, which is something to factor into your decision, both practically and financially.
Good point. Now, I have to ask, and maybe this is me being overly cautious, but are there any concerns about the long-term effects of repeatedly injecting Botox into the same muscle over, say, years and years?
It's a valid question, and to be completely honest, it's one that researchers are still exploring. We know that Botox itself has a long history of safe use for various applications.
Right, like for wrinkles, it's been around forever.
Exactly. But most of the research on its long-term effects has focused on those cosmetic uses, like treating wrinkles, rather than its use in the masseter muscle. So we still need more data to fully understand the potential long-term implications of Masseter Botox, both positive and negative.
Interesting. So there's still a bit of a question mark when it comes to the long game.
There is, but that's often the case with newer treatments. The important thing is to be aware of both the knowns and the unknowns, and to make informed decisions based on the best available evidence.
So interesting conversation, lots to think about. But let's say someone's listening, they're like, okay, this is all fascinating, but is Masseter Botox right for me? What advice would you give them, just sort of as a final thought?
Honestly, don't rush into anything. I know that's easier said than done, right? Especially with those Instagram before and afters, it's like,
Ooh, tell me about it. Tempting.
right? But this is one of those things where you've got to prioritize your health, your well-being, not just chasing some trend.
Okay, so slow down, tune out the noise. What else?
Research, research, research. Don't just take someone's word for it. Learn about Masseter Botox, the good, the bad, the whole 9 yards. And when you're ready to actually talk to someone professional.
Yeah, don't just go to, like, the cheapest place down the street, right?
Exactly. Find someone qualified, someone with experience specifically with Masseter Botox, Look at their work, ask for recommendations, all that good stuff.
Right, like this isn't the time to trust your friend's hairdresser's cousin who just got certified online.
Exactly. This is your face, your health. Find someone reputable. And, this might sound obvious, but don't be afraid to ask questions.
Even if you think they're dumb questions.
Exactly. If something doesn't feel right, speak up. It's your body, your decision.
Love that. Advocate for yourself.
Always. And one more thing I'll add is, Masseter Botox, it's not a magic bullet. and it's not the only option out there.
Well, that's a good point. Like, if someone's main thing is teeth grinding, there are other ways to go, right?
Absolutely. Depending on your situation, maybe a custom-fitted mouth guard would be better. Or even just stress management. Did you know clenching and grinding can be from stress?
Wow. So many things I never would have considered.
Right. So yeah, explore those options too. Talk to your doctor. Figure out what makes sense for you.
Awesome. Well, I'd say we've done some serious deep diving today. Any final wisdom you want to impart to our listeners before we wrap things up?
I think the biggest thing to remember with Master Botox or really any treatment is just be informed, Make choices that align with your needs, your goals.
Beautifully said. Love it. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right for everyone. Do your research, talk to the right people, and make the choice that feels best for you. And hey, if you learned something new today, why not share this episode with a friend? Spread the knowledge. Thanks for diving deep with us, everyone. We'll catch you in the next episode of The Deep Dive.